Are we sure that this is going to be long enough for a video? Hey everyone, I'm Claire. Welcome to my home kitchen. Today, instead of showing you a recipe from Dessert Person, I am answering some of your requests in the comments to show you 13 of my baking essentials. These are the pieces of equipment that I cannot live without, and if you want to get into home baking, I recommend that you get them too.
It's funny that the idea that someone would comment, please tell me you're 13.
I know. The number isn't significant. Oh, classic meme. Like, said, you know, nobody, whatever. I don't know how memes work. Okay. Number 13, I'm gonna create the hierarchy as I go. This here is a rather fancy instant read thermometer. It is called a Thermapen. I'm not saying you have to get a Thermapen, but it is really the gold standard. Any instant read thermometer though is gonna help you if you're getting into candy making, a lot of different pastry. It's important to know the temperature of lemon curd or a fudge, stuff like that. So a lot of baking and pastry is temperature sensitive, and take the guesswork out of it. Do yourself a favor. An instant read thermometer is very, very useful. And it's not just for baking and pastry. It's for temping meat. You know, there's so many things where it's like, why guess? You know, just use a thermometer. It takes all the guesswork out of it. That was 13. So number 12, I'm gonna say this. So this is a little 1/4 cup liquid measure from OXO. I love these things. I tend to use them a lot. So when I'm recipe developing, I'm paying very close attention to all the quantities of ingredients. When I'm cooking and not really creating a recipe to share with people, I'm just adding things until I get the proportions and the taste and balance I want. But when I'm recipe developing, I always need to know the quantities that I'm adding, and you can read it from above. So I love that OXO makes it so that you don't have to get down at eye level to read a liquid volume. It's just something I grab all the time. Number 12. Okay, this is an item that's a little weird, a little bit unexpected, uncommon. It is a curved paring knife. I think they call these called bird's beak paring knives, bird head, bird beak. I think it's bird beak. This is something where it's they made us use this in culinary school to do something called turn vegetables, which is you basically shave off a vegetable into a very regular shape so that they're all even. It's a totally pointless technique, at least in my mind. But this is a knife that I find myself reaching for over and over and over again because it's great for little detail work, often the kinds of things that you have to do for pastry. So taking the hull off of a strawberry, cutting around the pit of an Italian plum. It's a knife to me that feels great in the hand, and you have just so much control with this short little blade. It's just good at getting around things. All right, so number 10. If you've watched episodes, you've probably seen in my kitchen I have all sorts of things labeled with green tape. So this is a roll of painter's tape. It's kind of a 3-in-1. Maya! Hey, little Maya. Maya. Kitty, she's hungry. Hey, little kitty. Hi. I can't pick her up. She's too heavy. She does like it, actually. She lets me pick her up. But she's so heavy, and I'm afraid because then she'll also bite me. Here, kitty. Here, have some treats. No, don't run away. Oh, kitty. See, she's afraid of us all. Bye, Maya. Okay, back to the tape. In my kitchen, it's a space issue, but it's also an organizational thing. I usually decant whatever pantry item or liquid condiment into another container, either a squeeze bottle or a pint or a quart, and then I always label it. And so this is just my preferred labeling method, a Sharpie and painter's tape. And then Christina Che, my friend, told me about this handy little gadget called the Tadpole Tape Cutter that lets you create super straight, clean tears on the tape, which I'm now obsessed with. And it's just good for labeling. So number 9, I'll talk about this guy. This is a rather specific item. It's called a dusting wand. This is also by OXO. And so I'll show you how it works. So you open up the spear, then you dip it in and scoop. Then you rotate this little piece of the handle, close it, and then you just dust. So this is great for finishing a cake. If I were rolling out pie dough, I have a beautiful, even flour-coated surface. 8. Any kitchen should have a pair of shears. This pair of shears is part of the cookware line from the famous Chinese-American chef Joyce Chen. There's like a whole cookware line. She's a television personality and restaurateur. And I don't have anything else from that line, but I love these shears. I've been using these for years. They are strong enough to do bigger jobs like cutting through poultry bones or something, but also stay sharp and are good for fine work as well. So it's just like, there's often things where you want to snip something, and these are the best snips. Now we're getting to the good stuff, you guys. So number 7 is a roll of disposable 18-inch pastry bags. I try not to use single-use plastic ever, so sometimes what I'll do is like try to wash these and reuse a few times. But there are just so many operations where you need a pastry bag for something called piping, where you are like sort of forcing something through a small opening into something else. And they just help me work really clean, really neat, and it's just so convenient to have them on hand like this. And they're all, you just, you know, zip across like that. Unfortunately, sort of indispensable, I think. This is a pastry brush. This is number 6. This is my 6th most reached for thing. I'm just always washing this pastry brush, so I know that I use it all the time. So I use this for egg wash, for, you know, applying glaze, applying like a soak to a cake, which I just did earlier today. There's natural bristles, and natural bristles tend to hold onto liquid much better. Sometimes you see those very cheap silicone ones with like the sort of tentacle bristles. Those don't really do the job very well. And there's a lot of pastry things where like you can't do without a pastry brush. So number 5, I'm gonna talk about my kitchen scale. Now we're getting into like the real essentials where it's like some of the ones from the beginning, if I didn't have them, I could kind of work around. Now we're kind of getting to the point where like I cannot do what I do without these tools. Basically, this is for weighing ingredients. I weigh flour and water and sugar all the time, but it's also incredibly useful when you have to portion things. So if you're making dinner rolls and you want all the rolls to be the same size, weigh them. There's certain things where it's not convenient at all to measure by volume. By weight is the way to go. So when you're distributing cake batter, for example, it just creates so much more seamlessness and accuracy whenever you're baking. And also for cooking, it's not just baking. So it is a tool that will last a long time and be very useful, and I highly, highly recommend that you invest in a kitchen scale. Number 4, this is where it's like a little Sophie's choice. Okay, this will be 4. This tiny spatula does not look like much, but I cannot tell you how much I love having this in the kitchen. I actually have a few of them. I think like words would fail to explain how useful this is, especially for what I mentioned earlier, which is like I'm doing lots of measuring, very carefully and specifically, and then if I'm measuring volume and not weighing it, I then find myself having to scrape all sorts of things out of little cups. And this is the best thing for that. I'm like a stickler for getting every last bit of something out of a jar or container, and this is the thing that does it best. Number 3 is my rolling pin, which is more a reflection of just my attachment to it and my personal connection to it rather than its overall utility, although a rolling pin is not just for dough and pastry. This is special for a few reasons. One, I just love the style. So I prefer a rolling pin that's dowel style. So this is a kind that doesn't have those handles on the sides and then the pin itself spins and you have that kind of ball bearing. It's also not tapered. I kind of hate the tapered ones and find them hard to use. Those are the so-called French style pins. I don't know if I said so-called, they are just called French style pins. And this is special also because it was given to me by a friend from Nicole Harriet, photographer and pastry chef and overall person with phenomenal taste. And it feels so good. I believe it was carved by her dad. and it's so smooth. It feels so good in my hands. I also love that the wood improves over time. It's kind of conditioned from all the butter that it comes into contact with. What I like about this is when I'm rolling out dough, I have a better sense of like what's happening between the surface and the pin versus the handles. Like I don't have a clear idea of the thickness of what's underneath. Here I have the most sort of like touch sensation of what's happening with the dough. Number 2. Okay, so number 2 is also sentimental. This is a bowl scraper. It is a piece of plastic. I think it cost €1. I bought it when I was living in Paris and I was in culinary school. And it's from a famed kitchen store called Detour, which I don't even think I'm necessarily saying it properly. It is, like Julia Child used to go there. It is a famous, famous cookware place in the area called Les Halles, which is sort of where the huge food market used to be. And I love it so, so much. It reminds me of a very important time in my life, very formative time, and also a very, very happy time. And I still love using it. And it's also just, it's not just sentimental. I do use it all the time for bread baking. It's called a bowl scraper because it's designed for scraping around the side of a bowl. Anytime you have dough or thick batter, I love it. And it really feels like an extension of my hand. Number 1, if you've watched any video about Dessert Person or anything else, this is not going to be a surprise to you. What's the name again? Count Spatula. So my number 1 most favorite, prized, useful, recommended, all the superlatives kitchen tool is the small or baby offset spatula. And do I even need to say why? I mean, I know I do, but it should be obvious at this point. I don't even know that it's like the versatility of things that I do with it. It's just that it is by far the best tool for spreading things. And that, I don't know, for whatever reason, I tend to be doing that a lot. It is my tool of choice for spreading butter on my toast, for spreading cake batter into a pan, for scraping, if I'm taking a cookie off of a cookie sheet, I just can get right under it and lift it up. I use it to frost a cake. I love it so much that I named it. We just dubbed it Count Spatula. And it is my number 1 best, most useful, beloved kitchen tool of all time. So those are the 13 kitchen tools that I use the most and or have a personal connection to, love the best, find the most versatile. And so I think that if anyone is serious about getting into baking at home or even just cooking, many, if not all of these would be very useful to invest in. None of these are sponsored. I have no formal connection to any of these brands. I just really like them and use them all the time. So I wanted to tell you about them in this episode, but stay tuned because next week we'll be back with more recipes from Dessert Person. And thank you for watching. And thank you for leaving comments and like and subscribe.